remember my mentor, I came back to her and I said, you know what? I'm going to be a tax accountant. And she was like, oh, you seem like more of the auditor type. And I thought, oh dear, what does that mean?
Hello and welcome to Simply Tax. On the podcast today, we're cutting through the static of the campus recruiting world for students. Now, thinking back to when I was in school and looking into that vast, exciting, but perhaps a bit overwhelming future that lay ahead of me, I simply had no idea where to start or even what questions to ask. Not to mention the fact that I honestly didn't feel all that great about asking questions in the first place, since that might mean I might show that I didn't know enough to even know enough about what I didn't know, right? Well, luckily, I mustered up just enough courage to ask a few questions, and I got some great advice from a campus recruiter that, along with the insights I took from my internship experiences, led me down the path to become a tax partner at BKD and to a career that I truly enjoy waking up to each morning. And that's why I'm excited to share with you on the podcast today my opportunity to ask two campus recruiters from BKD all those questions that I wish I had asked back when I was in your shoes as a student, ranging from the age-old audit versus tax debate to concerns that are top of mind right now amid a pandemic, like how do you stand out in a virtual environment, and how has recruiting in the process changed as a result of COVID-19? Let's get the conversation started by learning more about our guests today and why they love what they do.
My name is Jerica Newby. I am a native Wichitan, so go Wichita, Kansas. I actually graduated from Wichita State with my bachelor's in accounting. I was a non-traditional student. I was a first-generation student, so I worked full-time in the accounting industry as I was completing school. And my boss, when I was working and completing my accounting degree, was like, hey, you should go try public accounting. So I did, and I began with BKD in the spring of 2017 as a tax associate, and then transitioned to our wonderful campus recruiting team in the fall of 2019. So learning the HR world has been really exciting, and I have found that my favorite part as a recruiter, and the thing that's most exciting to me, is that I get the opportunity to interact with outstanding people every day. And then I get to help those amazing people make one of the biggest decisions of their life, which is choosing the first stop on their career path. So I think that's just something really cool and something I get jazzed about every day when I wake up and head to work.
That's so important to feel that way about what you do and have the passion for it. And you can clearly hear it in your voice, even. Michael, a little about your background and what you enjoy most about what you do.
Yeah, definitely. So I am Michael Nuttle. I'm the campus recruiter for our Cincinnati office, as well as Louisville and Evansville. I live here in Cincinnati. I've been with BKD my entire career. I always like to tell people when I'm introducing myself, if I'm talking at a college, got to get all my biases out there. BKD, professionally speaking, is all that I know. I did a couple of internships with them back in 2012, 2013, then started full-time 2014 in the tax department in Cincinnati. So like Jerica, also got an accounting degree from Miami University. I graduated in 2014, did the CPA thing. You know, it's just a thing, right? And then went in, started my career in the tax department there in Cincinnati. Did that for a little while. And then in May of 2017, moved over into campus recruiting, started just solely in Cincinnati, expanded out to our Pennsylvania offices, and then moved into the role that I'm in now, including Louisville and Evansville. And I think for me, what I enjoy the most about campus recruiting specifically is exactly like what Jerica said. You know, that opportunity to help people really understand, because you're going to meet a lot of students. A lot of different students have different interests and different ideas and passions and things like that. And it's interesting for me personally just to get to meet these folks, but then also to be a part of helping them really kind of figure out what exactly is their right fit. You know, what fits that passion, what fits those interests and things like that. Hopefully it's BKD, obviously, but it's not always going to be the case, but you can still leave that person with something that's going to allow them to better themselves in the future. And so I think, I think Jerica just kind of said it the best, and just being able to help people, make a really big decision in their life really is probably the most exciting part of the job for me.
We have a very rewarding career in campus recruiting.
I guess it wasn't entirely by happenstance here, but both have the background with we'll call it there's no wrong choice perhaps in public accounting, but clearly I'm biased as the best choice of tax. So have a little bit of that back there as well, right?
You're in good company here.
That's right. Yeah. As campus recruiters, we value both sides of the business, but you're not wrong in your opinion either, Damien. So we get it.
That was the correct answer there to
Exactly.
round it out,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. So I guess maybe speaking of that and kind of the accounting profession, accounting industry, what all it entails, maybe we could talk a little bit about what the recruiting cycle looks like and what's it involved. And maybe we'll start with what it's generally like, and then we can start to take a closer look at kind of the environment that we're in now, obviously. And Jerica, maybe you want to kind of kick us off there of some guideposts. I know, thinking back to my experience, I had no idea what to expect, and I would have really liked to have had some ideas.
Hey, you and me both. I like to say that I kind of lucked into BKD for sure. I like to think in the right place at the right time because I didn't know what this process entailed either. I went into a career fair my junior year of college, headed into my senior year, just thinking, hey, I'll hand out a few resumes. I'll, get people to know my name, and ended up getting 4 job offers that semester. So that was a real light bulb moment for me. And so I guess what I'll say first and foremost about the accounting cycle is that currently, it is highly competitive and fast paced. So, accounting students who are interested in the public experience and getting their CPA are in high demand. And candidates, when we talk about that fast paced environment, should really be prepared to enter the recruiting process as soon as school starts in the fall semester. And I'm not talking like, okay, maybe September time. I'm talking August going into September, because a lot of our recruiting events take place in September and October. And so you've got to have your resume drafted and reviewed and ready to hand out to people. You need to be practicing those interview skills, and you need to be practicing your elevator speeches and your personal branding spiels so that when you're out meeting people, you're making that impression and connecting right away. So on-campus events include everything from info sessions to classroom presentations. Meet the Firms is a big event that we attend across the board, across the nation. Again, these are all things that I wouldn't recommend winging. So knowing that going into the fall semester really gives students a leg up in the process, and they'll be able to help set themselves up for success if they're aware of when they need to start and what kinds of things they need to have prepared moving into September and October.
And I think to add on to that, like Jerica said, yes, you definitely have to be ready earlier in the school year, but also to just a little bit more proactive in the sense of when you would be starting to look for a job. And that's really the uniqueness, I think, to public accounting in general, is that lead time that we have in our recruiting. We're hiring people, we're making job offers in September and October for folks that, if it's an internship, sometimes it's January, sometimes it's not till the following June. If it's a full-time position, off of campus, you're getting that job offer for September, maybe to start, the next September. So you're talking about 12-month lead time. So I think that's really what's really unique about the public accounting recruiting experience that kind of really does catch a lot of students off guard. I mean, I often get students in spring semester, asking me about summer internships, talking about maybe this summer, 2020. I was talking to them in the spring semester, 2020. And I'm like, look, I'm already, looking at spring of 2021, summer of 2021. And it really does kind of catch students off guard a little bit, just that lead time that there is in the recruiting efforts there.
And that's not to say that we don't have available opportunities for those students. It just means, other students have already had a leg up, and we're already well into our staffing requirements at that point. So definitely worth a chat and getting to know the process ahead of time. But that's a really good point, Michael. The more you know up front, the better chance you have at getting one of these opportunities.
I can also, again, think back to my own experience and think about all the things that are on your mind ordinarily. And then obviously, again, this year in particular, a lot of additional things to be thinking about, kind of being in the shoes of the student. But are there things that you as a campus recruiter are able to help with? And maybe there's ways that you can almost use you to your advantage if I'm a student thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to do all of this and handle the coursework and everything else that's on my plate?
I think the biggest thing, honestly, when you're going through this is to utilize other people in this, right? I mean, like this is why companies have recruiters, right? This is why I have a job. I'm here to kind of help you understand through that process. And I think I can confidently say that anybody that's in a role like this, Jerica, myself, other folks, we're in this role because we care and we want to help. And so, if you're not sure, if you have questions, we should be the people that you go to, right? Because we're the ones that are trying to help you understand. So that again, we're trying to find the right fit for you, find the right fit for us. And so, the more that we can help you, in turn, we're kind of helping ourselves, by finding those right candidates.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Michael. Especially in this virtual landscape, there's going to be a lot of noise out there this semester, and I'm sure students will have feelings of being overwhelmed and, oh gosh, should I go to this event versus this event? Should I go to all of them? But yeah, utilizing your campus recruiter is going to be a pretty valuable resource to you, and make contact with us early on. I think there's a common misconception that we're only looking to talk to seniors or students preparing to graduate, this year, or, filling spots for 2022. When in reality, we're constantly building relationships with candidates at all levels. So, if you happen to be a freshman or a sophomore navigating this virtual landscape, you can benefit from talking to a campus recruiter as well. And in fact, we probably prefer that. Students who reach out to me, or candidates that reach out to me and make that one-on-one connection, just helps them stick out in my mind. So when it comes time for those hiring decisions and, hey, do we know this person? I can say yes, and they're awesome. We should really look at bringing them under the BKD umbrella, whatever it takes, because I know them personally. So utilize your recruiters. If you don't know where to start, looking for the recruiter tagline in an email, or searching a company website for that recruiter title is going to be good for you to reach out to them.
Yeah, well, I think even just your opening comment there, Jerica, about helping people make the most important decision there, right? And I think that really tees it up well and frames it well, because it is an important decision, and it's okay to not know what to do, right? And to ask for that help. And it's not always easy to do, I know, but it seems like when you have somebody like yourself that's willing to help out and offer some perspective, and maybe even give some of that guidance, because like you mentioned, you kind of even got some guidance in your decision, and it kind of led you to where you are, right?
If my boss hadn't been a CPA previously, I may not have even considered going the public route. But then when I actually did go through the process and I was trying to decide, what firm I was actually going to accept my offer at, it really was the people and the recruiter. I remember Molly Davis was just so personal with me and didn't make me feel like a number in the process. I feel like she knew who I was. She knew my story. She helped me along every step of the way. And that to me was just something I didn't get somewhere else. And that's something that stuck out to me about BKD. So those things do help. And again, there's some bias there, right? Obviously, like Michael said, we hope that you come work for BKD because we wholeheartedly believe this is the best place you can have the public accounting experience. But if it's not with us, we also, can take off our BKD hat and help you navigate the process and get you to where you need to be going based on, your own personal strengths and your goals that you're trying to reach. So don't be afraid to talk to us. That's kind of been my mission as a recruiter, helping students create that transparency. I know it's scary to talk to, a BKD recruiter about an offer that you might have somewhere else, or another experience you want to go and pursue. But really, if you can be transparent and put it out on the table, that's going to help me help you. And ultimately, we don't know what's going to happen down the road. So in that way, you're not burning any bridges, and you're actually creating a meaningful relationship. So I think that that's an important part of the process as well.
It's really, really good advice. And you kind of mentioned in there the decision, I guess, that you almost kind of have to make about accounting in general, and then public accounting. So I don't know, maybe if you have some tips on why a career in public accounting is, you think, a good one, and why someone should consider that. I mean, again, I'm a little biased. I guess we're all a little biased here if we're gonna be honest, right? But
Right, right.
what do you think are the reasons and the things to look for in making that decision?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely good we're all getting our biases out on the table right now, just so we're coming at people from that. But uh yeah. But honestly, no, I think the public versus, industry question, if you declare an accounting major, everyone's going to ask you that probably the first day you walk on campus. Are you thinking public or you thinking industry? And it's a big question. And I think it's not something that's just easily answered because of one thing. I really do think that you have to kind of look at what is important to you and what kind of skills you have, right? And what you're looking for in a career. Because they can offer you a lot of different things. I mean, being biased, I think that public accounting is a great place for somebody to start and build a career in, because it offers you a really wide variety of opportunities, working in different industries, working with different companies, getting an opportunity to see a lot of different things to really kind of build out that breadth of knowledge that you then can kind of scale down into to start to focus and specialize, versus going into that industry role where you're just working for one company and you're maybe doing the same thing over and over. But again, I think it's being honest with yourself. I think it's understanding what works for you. If you are a person who you have a routine and you have to stick to your routine, and if your routine is off, your whole week is off, public accounting probably is not the right place for you. Maybe you would benefit from something that's a little bit more routine in how you handle the process. And I'm not going to go too in depth in that because, again, no experience in industry work. So I don't want to speak too much on something that I don't know. But I really do think it takes a candidate, a student, to take the time and be intentional about what it is that they're actually looking for, what skills they possess, what matters to them, really to kind of help them at least get that feeling of which direction they should go. I know for me personally, I just like the idea of not having to make the decision of what industry I wanted to work in. I did my first internship after my sophomore year, and I had taken all of 2 accounting classes at that time. So I knew nothing. I thought I knew a lot, but I knew nothing. And so the idea of like picking one industry that I was going to be comfortable in and do really well in at that time just seemed pretty much impossible. And so the idea that I was like, hey, let me go into this route, into the public route, and let me start experiencing a lot of these things. And then maybe down the road, I find something that I want to move into and specialize into.
I think that that's all great advice, Michael. And I was also going to add in talking a little bit about the way public accounting is structured, right? So one of our differentiators is that when you, and I think I can speak for a lot of public accounting firms, I'll say most, you're going to be offered a roadmap to career progression, right? So we want to build our future leaders from the ground up, which is another exciting part of my job that I could possibly be hiring, our next CEO of BKD or one of our next partners. That's really cool to think about. But just understanding that because you basically get a roadmap and you can work your way up through the public accounting levels, it's harder to transition from that private space. So say you go work in private accounting for a few years and then you want to dabble or, see what public accounting is about. It's going to be a little bit harder for you to transition in that way. Not impossible, but harder. Just because the people who have gotten in on the ground floor are already working their way up. And they're just building blocks that build off of each other year after year, and you take on more responsibilities. So that's something to consider as well. Definitely understand what career progression looks like. And again, I know we're asking a lot of college students, right? You have to do a lot of the research ahead of time. But it's just an experience that you can't liken to anything else, meaning public accounting. I tell students it's a business boot camp. You're going to learn a lot really quickly. You're going to learn about different industries. You're going to learn about different issues within accounting. And then you can leverage those skills later into a private career, which again is nothing wrong with that at all. But I feel like having that experience up front really allows you to learn some things that you wouldn't have otherwise without going into the public sector. So I think that's something a lot of students aren't aware of either, just basically that transition from public to private and just how hard it is to make that private to public transition.
And I think that also, Jerica, speaks to, again, the importance of a role as a campus recruiter in helping students understand that, right? Because you mentioned that, right? We have to remember we're talking to college students. We're talking to students that are 19 and 20 years old that, may not have ever had a job at all and everything. And so,
or know what an accountant does.
Right, exactly. And so
they knew somebody in their family or a close friend, they're like, oh, accounting, right? You guys are the weird recluses that sit in the cubicle and crunch numbers all day, right?
Definitely. I got called that once or twice when I was going through accounting, so I understand that. But no, but I mean, and I think that's the important thing for us to keep in mind, because we get used to, working with our CPAs that we have on the team, and the partners and the directors and everybody who like, this is their career, this is what they're doing. And you kind of have to remind yourself when you're talking to these college students, these 19, these 20-year-olds, it's like they don't have these experiences. They don't know. So you really do have to, again, commit the time and take the time to really kind of answer the questions, Damien, that you're asking us right now for these students, really.
Thinking back through it, I had no idea starting out what a tax partner at a CPA firm did, really what a CPA really was. I mean, it took a lot of asking. They always say there's no such thing as a dumb question, but I probably thought was a dumb question. And basically what I'm hearing you guys say is there aren't such thing as a dumb question, and really should be kind of using the resources and the tools that you have kind of with the campus recruiters like yourselves, right?
Yeah, clearly we're not scary and we don't bite. So we love all the questions.
Thank you for clarifying that, Jerica. I'd like to have that out there. So
we're just getting like our biases out of the way. Right. The fact that there's no biting. All these sorts of things. We're just getting it out there, clear the air. Okay, maybe to clear the air on this question that you mentioned, Jerica. You get the industry versus public accounting question, but then there's the audit versus tax, obviously, which we were kind of joking about, maybe only a little joking, maybe being serious too about the fact that tax is clearly a great choice there. But more seriously, like how do you know if you're a student in particular, and maybe you haven't even had a tax class or an audit class to be able to compare the two, which direction should you go and how should you approach it, even from like an internship perspective, when maybe, as I said, you haven't had that experience yet?
Yeah, sure. Well, ask about the internship experience when you're looking for those things. I mean, that's the best way you're going to get a snapshot of what real life is in public accounting, right? So not only the hours requirements and the type of work you're going to be doing and, the culture you're going to be working in, but yeah, also whether you're going to get to experience the tax and audit side. So for us, we offer a dual internship so that you can where they're about 12 weeks long and you can experience 6 weeks on audit and then do 6 weeks in tax. And, I can't tell you, I can't count the number of times a candidate has come to me and said, oh man, I thought for sure I was going to be a tax accountant, but I'm switching to audit. I really want to have that audit experience and vice versa. But if you can't do an internship experience, and again, it's not possible for everybody. Everybody's career search journey looks a little bit different. I didn't do an internship with BKD before I was hired. But there are some things you can kind of draw upon to understand. Like, Michael talked about having that routine. If you're not somebody who's going to like working in a different office space for weeks on end or, every other week and it's constantly changing up, then maybe audit isn't for you. If you don't want to travel for your job, that could be another indicator that audit isn't for you. And vice versa on the tax side, if you don't like the idea of being in the office more than not, then maybe you need to consider audit and the different types of projects they work on. So ask those questions when you're at those events, when you talk about, or when the firms and the team members and the leadership come to visit your school and give you that information. Be sure to ask those questions about, well, why did you choose that? And see if you can align yourself with their journey. If you're not comfortable with speaking up in the event, make sure to grab a business card and email them after the fact. I guarantee you they'll be more than happy to share their experience.
I think we're hitting on a theme here in the sense of, using the resources that are around you, right? Not just the recruiters, but the people that the recruiters bring with them to events. Because I'm definitely not going to a career fair by myself. and trying to talk to 100 plus students all by myself. I'm bringing folks that are doing the jobs that these students are interested in. And so use those times, like use that time to have a conversation about what helped that person decide. Because, I think Jerica touched on some of the key things that I think people think about, the idea of like traveling, not traveling and everything. But what about the work, like what skill sets are you using as an auditor versus what are you using as tax? For me, having had experience both in audit and tax, one of the things I really did not like the idea of just being able to like write things off to materiality. When I was doing audits, like I really had that desire to get things down exactly correct. And then I was told by my in charge I was spending too much time on a $1,000 account. And I was like, maybe this isn't for me. It's really kind of understanding that, because one thing shouldn't make the decision for you. Your desire to travel versus not travel should not be the one thing that makes the decision for you in that audit versus tax question. It should be a part of the consideration. It should definitely be something that it's like, if you really don't like to travel or you need to be in the office, like, yeah, it's going to carry some more weight, but don't base it off of that. But then also, yeah, utilize the people that you meet, utilize your network to really get to know what helped other people make that decision. And maybe they thought of something that you haven't thought of that can help you. I know for myself personally, we do a leadership program called Experience BKD. And so this is for those students that are probably in between their second and third year in college. So they're going to be, if they haven't already done an internship, they're going to be doing one soon, and they're trying to figure that out. I specifically have an audit panel with folks from director to, senior 2 to an associate. So they kind of get a view of what that career path looks like. And I do the same thing on the tax side, and really just kind of help really try to lay it all out there for them so that they understand exactly what each path entails and everything. And so you can find a lot of resources out there like that. I will not say I'm the first person to ever come up with the idea to do an audit and a tax panel at a leadership program. But if you're a student, it's taking advantage of that and utilizing other people's knowledge to help you make a decision. Because Damien, you're right. They oftentimes, I get a lot of folks that, I ask them about if they're interested in tax, and they say, no, I haven't taken that class yet. And I was like, well, when are you going to take it? And they're like, well, second semester, senior year. It's like, well, how are you supposed to, again, getting back to the lead time of recruiting and public accounting, it's like, you probably already have a job offer at that point, so how are you supposed to make the decision if you haven't taken that class? And it's using other people's experiences to help you understand what's best for you.
Yeah, and I think what we're calling that, or what I'd like to call that, is a mentor. Find yourself a mentor. You don't just take, our word for it, the recruiters, because again, we do have those biases, and we're going to make BKD sound shiny and great and wonderful, and it is, and it's our job to do that. But find a mentor too, whether that's a trusted professor, a boss. Like in my case, I had a boss that I ran everything by when I was getting my offers, a family member. Even if they haven't worked in the accounting industry, you can still discuss details with them. They're going to offer a different perspective, which is great. But whoever it is, just someone that you trust and someone that can be a sounding board, that can offer you a different perspective, that can, poke holes in things that you think, sound good, great, and wonderful. And maybe they're offering you an outside perspective on your personality, right? I remember my mentor, I came back to her and I said, you know what? I'm going to be a tax accountant. And she was like, oh, you seem like more of the auditor type. And I thought, oh dear, what does that mean? And so she broke it down for me, and things maybe I hadn't considered about my personality. So I think that's another way you can find out which area you're wanting to go into, as well as, get that outside perspective and somebody who really knows you and says, hey, you've got this kind of trait. Are you sure you're going to be okay with, this type of work? Like Michael said, tying everything out and, I can't just write off $1,000. By the way, couldn't agree more. That would drive me nuts.
Thank you. Thank you.
I know. I'm so glad I've got allies on this podcast. But yeah, that's my other 2 cents is, find a mentor and somebody that can give you feedback on yourself, and, again, just offer you another perspective to help you decide on what avenue could be best for you.
It's really good advice. And yeah, finding a good mentor is it's huge, and something to do, I'd say, throughout your career. I know that's something I've always I feel like I'm always doing and looking for guidance and mentorship. I find the times when I haven't done that as much is the times that I kind of am like kicking myself a little bit. Like, why do I feel like this is harder than it should be? It's like, oh, because I'm not getting the feedback and the input and the, being able to bounce the ideas off of somebody that I need. So that's really, really important. And I guess maybe, and I know this was how part of the way I did it. And I actually did, there's a campus recruiter that helped kind of guide me the direction I ended up going that ultimately led me to where I am now. But I did have an internship in there as well to kind of help solidify it, help with that whole audit versus tax thing, or, the public versus industry and all those, just trying it out. Right. So any tips you would have on maybe successfully doing that, being successful in the role? And then, obviously a lot in many cases, and I don't know which one of you had said it earlier about kind of like the win-win, as part of this. I always look at an internship as a win-win in a way, because, as a student, you get to learn if the profession's a good fit for you. Is this place a good fit for me? Is BKD for me? And then on the flip side, those that you're interning with get a chance to work with you and see if you're going to be a good fit as well. So it's kind of that win-win. So what are some tips there, and how do you go about it successfully?
Oh man, win-win is definitely a Michael Nuttle phrase. So I'm going to let him kick this one off.
Again, I don't think I'm the first person to ever use that phrase, but I'm willing to take credit for it. Definitely happy to take credit for it. With those internships, Damien, I think you hit it right on the head. That what I always tell students, this is your opportunity to find out, just generally speaking, public accounting is for you, right? Let's not even get into the tax or the audit role, but this is a demanding career, a very rewarding career. I always like to add that in. It's a very rewarding career, but it's a demanding career. And so that internship is really going to give you that insight into whether this career is for you. And honestly, if you walk away from that, knowing that it's not for you, then you're still fine. You're still in college. You're able to go back and then try something else. But I would say, for anybody in an internship, whether you're doing one or the other, or if you have the opportunity to do both, which I think is a great opportunity. I will say that's not available everywhere, but if you have an opportunity to do both, it's definitely helpful. I think it goes into, a lot of what we've been saying earlier. While you're in there, utilize the people around you, not just the folks that you're working directly with, maybe people in the other departments. Use that internship too to ask so many questions. Ask as many questions as you want. When I'm getting feedback from folks on how our interns are doing, they're worried when they're not asking questions, because the fear there is, they don't know what they're doing. They're afraid to admit it, and they're taking a lot longer than they should on things. And so, you should definitely, come in ready to ask a lot of questions, and also just be very open to feedback throughout it. And so I feel like you're not going to get every question answered that you need in an internship, whether something is right or wrong for you, but you're definitely not going to get it answered if you don't ever ask questions at all. I would say that's the biggest thing, is when you're in those roles, take advantage of the time that you have, really trying to understand why you're doing the job that you're doing. I think that's going to help folks understand a lot more about the idea of what it's like to be a public accountant, asking why, but then also, utilizing other people around you and getting to know their experiences as well, to kind of help you in that situation.
Yeah, and I would also use it as an opportunity to practice being vulnerable, right? Because we all like to think we're good at things. And I thought I was really smart until I came to work at BKD. And then I found out, oh my gosh, there are so many people that are way smarter than me. It's easy to rely and retreat back to that place of, oh, yeah, no, I know that. Or you ask a question and somebody says that, tells you the answer, and you say, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's what I thought, or oh yeah, I knew that. Well, if you knew that, you wouldn't be asking the question. So it's an opportunity to really be vulnerable, practice receiving feedback, and taking that on board and improving. That's a skill set in itself. I mean, that's not easy to take criticism all the time. And certain personalities, it's even more difficult. So I would also say, when you're you're drinking through the fire hose and you got a lot coming at you, it's okay to stand up and say, hey, I don't understand. I'm used to my textbooks and in-class problems that tie out into nice, neat numbers, and they all foot. And, I've got check figures, and then I get in the real world and it's nothing like what I'm doing in the classroom. And yeah, that's why you do an internship, to get the real experience. So I would encourage candidates, students doing internships to get in, practice being vulnerable and saying, hey, I really don't know, or I know you explained this 5 times, but I still don't understand. The internship is the perfect time to really practice that and get it under your belt. And you'll be surprised. You'll get to the end of it and look back and think, oh man, I didn't know I could do all of that. And that's a process that never stops in our industry. And it is daunting, but also should be really exciting, just knowing that you're never going to be bored and you're going to be constantly learning something new.
And I think to add on to that, Jerica, when you're an intern, I think you get the benefit of coming in with zero expectations, right? We don't, we don't expect anybody to be an all-star at anything when they come in, because we understand that probably the most accounting experience they have is the textbooks. And it is a lot different when you kind of get into that practical application and working and things like that. And so again, that's where, if I can stress it enough to anybody thinking about an internship, like, you have free reign to ask questions, because we're allowing you to come in without the expectations of having all of this figured out already. So again, take advantage of that and utilize the knowledge of other people to help you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the technical, classroom theories are definitely going to set you up for success. So, practice those problems and really try to understand those theories and how to apply them the best you can. But yeah, the real world experience is just going to be invaluable to you. Oh, and I'll add one more thing. Go to the happy hours, go to the office events, do everything you can to get to know the people that, if you go and you sign a full-time offer with this firm, you're going to spend a lot of time with them. So, and I mean, like, a lot. So get to know them and really understand, like, are these my people? Do I see them helping me develop along this journey? Do I see myself spending 65-hour weeks with them? Do I see myself here? Are these my people? That's another good thing to kind of suss out during your internship.
I couldn't agree with both of your comments more about, basically kind of having that beginner's mindset or that learner's mindset, and asking those questions, and really taking advantage of the experience. And I know we've kind of mentioned this in passing. Obviously, I've kind of caveated a little bit in saying, well, yeah, what's it normally like? And then, maybe let's turn to what is it like now? And like you just mentioned, Jerica, going to the happy hours and the events, and getting to know the people. Well, what do we do in this environment, and how does that look? And I would imagine there's a lot of uncertainty, clearly, and maybe even some anxiety that's coming with that, of that uncertainty. So, Jerica, I guess, what's it been like to work with students right now, and maybe the experiences that you're hearing on the internship side of things?
Definitely a lot of anxiousness, just like you alluded to there. It's tough for all of us, because part of the great thing about BKD is our culture, and how do we showcase that in a virtual landscape. And though we don't have all the answers, we can certainly try and put our best foot forward. We have a lot of events that we've developed that we are trying to make as interactive as possible. So students should absolutely attend those things. Each office is doing their best to put on social activities to keep people connected. And I would just say, do your best and try to make lemonade out of those lemons, and connect with people the best you can, and ask questions, even if you have to develop your own questions, and going to a partner and saying, hey, I know we're not able to do this in-person experience, but I wondered if you could share with me a little bit about why you chose this firm, and where you see us going post-COVID, or if we went back to doing, the exact same things we were doing before, what was most special about that experience to you? So you're going to have to do a little bit more digging. It may not be readily apparent. I think everybody's doing the best they can to showcase their culture in this landscape, but I would say just do the best you can to dig down deep and get people to really share why the firm you're working at and the experience you're having should be the one that you continue with, full time. It's tough.
I think you're right, Jerica. You kind of have to be coaching both ways, right? You have to be coaching these students that are coming in to do these internships in this COVID environment, where maybe they're in their office, maybe they're working remotely, but they're not going to be around everybody like you normally would be, and so you really kind of have to coach them up to be like, hey, we want you to get to know these people, make it a point to reach out and ask these questions and or just reach out and ask for 15 minutes to chat, to get to know people. And on the flip side too, I've had conversations with some of our younger staff and said like, hey, look, like we're looking to you guys to be those people that really showcase to these interns what we're about here in this office. You're the closest to them in age. In theory, we think that you would be able to relate with them the easiest. And so be intentional in reaching out to them and include them. And even if, all your happy hours are, over Zoom now, it makes a difference to people to see you like when you're an intern, take advantage of those and be a part of those. I think the biggest thing for all of us is while we're working away from each other is just being a little bit more intentional in interacting with people, because it's very easy to just kind of put your head down and be like, you know what, I'm just working and there's no one around me and I'm good to go. But I think, especially for those interns, it's even more important that you take that time now to get to know people, even in this unique environment.
Yeah. So candidates, if you're listening out there, if it's not readily like apparent to you what the firm that you're working with as an internship would be doing if COVID wasn't around, ask the question. Be like, hey, what were you guys doing this time last year? What events were going on? How did you guys celebrate the end of busy season? What events did you have during this busy time? So ask those questions. Just be very specific and see if you can get an idea of how the firm typically operates when the pandemic isn't upon us.
That's a good idea. I like that because it is hard to be able to answer that question for yourself. Is this a good fit for me? And can I see myself in this organization when the circumstances are kind of what they are right now, and a little, maybe more limited to see some of that. But maybe to that end, I know kind of some of the interactions that you've been doing, and even and it's Explore BKD. That's the program that you guys have been doing, right?
Yeah. We've got Explore BKD program, and so I mentioned Experience BKD because we love our words with ease here. But Explore it, so it's geared more towards usually like first or maybe like second year students that are just now starting off their accounting classes.
I guess how's that been going? Because obviously that's in a remote environment here, and maybe what are some of the things that you're hearing from students right now that maybe you could share to let others know that they're not alone. I guess
Yeah.
in terms of the things that they're thinking about as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's been, from what I've been hearing from the students, the biggest takeaway is, it's been a good space. I wouldn't say this is what we went into with the intention with this program. We had originally planned this prior to coronavirus happening. We were going to host it in Chicago. We were probably going to do it at Damien's house, to be perfectly honest with you, but that got shut down. When things kind of started getting shut down, he said, you know what, we'll still try this and we'll try to do it virtually. And honestly, if anything, it's been great for these students to get practice in being in a big virtual setting. We have about 25, 30 students on this and everything. And so getting comfortable with being in these group recruiting sessions virtually, yeah, I mean, just getting comfortable with the surrounding, being on screen and how you interact virtually in a professional setting, I think has been big. But I really think the biggest takeaway we had yesterday was we had a segment where it was just kind of, we were talking about, your role in recruitment. So it was a lot of the things that Jerica and I had already talked about. But one of the questions that got brought up was, what's your biggest fear for this fall? What's your biggest fear if all of this ends up being virtual, and every day it seems more and more likely that everything will be virtual as far as recruiting goes? What's your big fear? And just some of the things that students were sharing, how do I stand out? Like, how do I even make connections? How do I network? Things like that, that I think we all take for granted very easily when we're able to stand, in a college gymnasium at a career fair and just network like crazy and talk to 100 students and things like that. Now you're in a different capacity. But I think the students really opened up and were very honest about this. And then, having discussions with students afterwards, so many students made the comment, it was so refreshing to hear that other students are worried about the same things that I'm worried about. And then for me as a recruiter, I shared with them, I said, all the things you guys are worried about, I'm worried about as a recruiter. How do I make my company stand out in a virtual setting? How do I network with students and everything? So what it did was, unintentionally created a great space for all of us to kind of share these fears and anxieties around virtual recruiting this fall and just kind of have an open and honest conversation. And so I think it's going to be a unique fall recruiting session. I think it's one of those ones where we all have the opportunity, students and employers, to really lean in to the space and really utilize each other to kind of figure out how this is all going to work together. And honestly, this Explore PKD program has really allowed us to kind of figure that out a little bit more, that it's like we can have this open dialogue. Going back to Jerica made the point, when you're a student, being transparent and talking about things like that helps us do our jobs better. And so this program really did help us kind of get there. And so greatly appreciate the group of students that we had, just their willingness to participate and not just show up, but participate and engage in the conversations around that.
Yeah, that's the power of connection, really. And I think, even though we can't be with each other in the same room, and I know all of us are probably experiencing some form of, Zoom exhaustion or, being on a virtual platform exhaustion, it's still important to connect. And I've been in multiple meetings or whatnot and had those breakthrough moments as well. So keep connecting. As hard as it is to show up sometimes, do it. And, even if you are in some of those sessions and you do get fatigued, I think just on a, not necessarily a recruiting note, but it's okay to excuse yourself and say, yeah, I can't do it today, and reach out to whoever you have to later and say, hey, I missed this session or I missed this part of it. But just offering yourself that grace and your ability to open up to people is powerful.
Great stuff there. And I think just maybe recognizing just the human element of all of this, right? I mean, we are kind of all in the same situation. And then it's really interesting, Michael, like you said, that it almost kind of turned into like this two-way learning experience just by opening that up. And part of the fear is, how do I stand out and how do I network? Well, I think then it's to a certain element, being yourself and just embracing that, kind of owning where you are. Yeah, I have Zoom fatigue today. I really can't do this or whatever it is. I mean, I feel like those are the moments that my own personal experience, I feel the best about at the end of the day. Maybe short-term concern about sharing that and opening it up. But I mean, ultimately, I think if you're in a situation or a group or an internship experience, whatever, where you feel like you can't do that, maybe it's not the right one, right? And that if you can't really truly be yourself and express that. So maybe there's a way to even figure that out in this environment, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point, Damien. Yeah.
So maybe thoughts, I don't know, or, as many as you'd like to sprinkle in here, to leave everybody with, because again, I know we covered a lot of ground. I really appreciate it, kind of beginning and getting that help and kind of through the whole process, kind of what to expect, even in times where it's hard to expect much of anything. So what are some closing thoughts that you would leave everybody with, some words of advice and wisdom?
I consider myself an advocate for every candidate because, again, like I said, as a first generation college student who had to figure out a lot for myself, I never want to lose sight of the fact that everyone's career search experience is going to be unique. And if you take anything away from this, understand that your journey is unique. I know it's easy to get caught up with your classmates and say, oh, where'd you get an offer? And it's easy to compare your journey to theirs, but take a step back sometimes and be introspective about what's important to you. And, if your goals and values align with your friends, nothing is wrong with doing the same thing as your classmate. But I would challenge you to really understand what it is you want out of this accounting experience and then pursue opportunities and experiences that align with what you want for yourself and not just going with the flow. So that's my first tidbit. And then if you want to think about ways to make yourself stand out in this virtual environment, I would look to your experiences and maybe pick one or two that could have caused you to react negatively and really showcase that emotional intelligence you have and show how you overcame a really tough spot during this COVID landscape. We all have them, but I would say showcase that and say, you know what, I had this experience. This is how I interpreted it at the time. It really could have set me back, but this is what I did to proactively, move forward and not have it affect me negatively. So I think that's a great way to showcase a skill set that you have during this time, even if you don't have the time to be getting another certification or taking on more classes or, doing an Excel class to be a whiz at Excel. I think even falling back on some of those soft skills and doing some self-evaluation and showcasing that emotional intelligence is going to make you stand out when you go to interview this fall.
Great suggestions. And I mean, I'm even just thinking it from my perspective, when I'm interviewing candidates, a lot of times what I'm looking for and what I enjoy is, figuring out, what are some of those things outside of the code section and all of that, but what are some of those other things that you've done, taken some initiative on, things you've overcome, just even what do you enjoy doing, and sharing those things and having that to offer and demonstrating that emotional intelligence. Maybe like you said earlier, right, Jerica, kind of make lemonade out of lemons here, so to speak, right?
We are all collectively doing that right now.
That's
So,
right,
as we were saying before, you're not alone, but yeah, drag some of those things out and highlight them. Show yourself off a little bit. Nothing wrong with that.
for sure. Yeah. So, Michael, how about you? What are the words that you would leave everybody with?
I mean, I think we've kind of talked about it already, and Damien, you mentioned it, but as we head in towards the fall and we're all looking at, recruiting being virtual, we spend a lot of time sending emails and sending text messages and making phone calls and things like that right now, and not as much time physically meeting with everybody. But there is still a human element to everything with campus recruiting. Like Jerica said, understanding that everybody has like their unique career path. Like, don't forget, like, yeah, these are people that we're working with, right? And so we as recruiters, we're recruiters. We're not just, we're people. We're not just people that send out emails and everything like that. And so, remember that the human element in all of this, as we have said many times, we're all trying to figure this out together. Create space both ways to allow for some missteps and some miscues from time to time, because it's new for all of us. Offer grace to each other, and just don't forget that we're still human beings trying to help human beings find jobs to make their lives hopefully better. And to build on to like what Jerica was saying, what you were saying, Damien, everybody, if you're a college student, you're sitting here and your internship that you're supposed to have this summer got canceled, but you did something else instead, highlight it. All right. I think if anything, anybody who had an internship canceled because of coronavirus this summer doesn't have a free pass, but I think they get a little bit of bump up in the recruiting cycle this fall. Cause I know a lot of students are really worried about that. I was planning on having this experience on my resume. Now I don't. As long as you used your time to develop a new skill or something, you're going to be fine. But be ready to not just talk about it, not just say what you did, but how you can use it. How did it better you? How can you now provide value, in a role for a company with this new skill that you took time to learn and develop? I think those are probably the two main things that I feel like I've been trying to talk a lot to students about throughout this.
One last thing I'm going to ask you about here is actually, you mentioned it in the beginning, and that's the CPA. And like you said, Michael, you did that CPA thing,
That
and the
CPA,
exam,
that little
right?
CPA thing.
That little CPA, which is actually, that's kind of how I look at it too. It's a little bit of a, you get that thing done, and then you kind of keep on going. But maybe two questions that'll kind of ask you both here. One is the why on and the significance of it from your perspective, but also kind of in this environment as well. Are there considerations there? Are there some, again, some anxieties, some concerns that you're hearing from students and those that are kind of just starting out as they're looking to knock that CPA thing off their list?
I couldn't be a bigger advocate for getting your CPA exam out of the way early on in your career. A lot of the firms or public firms, I should say, will help you pay for your study materials. They'll offer bonuses for you to get that exam done, and use it as a tool to set yourself up for success later. If somebody's going to pay for you to get the exam done, it's a no-brainer to get it done, because at the end of the day, that's yours. That CPA exam thing, haha, that license is yours. And whether it takes you 10 tries or you pass all 4 exams and on the first shot, your license is going to look just like the other person. So again, back to not comparing your journey to other people's journeys. If that's a goal of yours, get it done, because whether you're with BKD or another firm or you go into industry, it's going to be a door opener for you and it's yours. So I guess outside, barring you doing something incredibly stupid in your career, that license is yours for life. So to me, it's a no-brainer to go through the process, and it's going to cost you some more time and effort. And again, it's just a no-brainer for you to get it and use it to leverage your skill set moving forward in your career.
And I think now more than ever, somebody sees CPA behind that name. I know we're joking; it's a little thing, right? But it's well known how much hard work goes into passing the CPA exam. And so if you're sitting there and you're unfortunately without a job or you don't have any prospects at a job right now, if you're a college student and everything, and you have the opportunity to kind of get started on that, it's going to make a big difference to an employer to see that, you're passing segments of the exam because they know how difficult it is. And the fact that you're willing to buckle down and to do it makes it all the much more valuable, especially now when there's a lot less jobs out there available.
Well, and it's a way for employers too to take you seriously, to see that you're serious about your craft and being a true professional in this area. So yeah, it's going to open doors for you. And again, it's just a way to say I know my stuff. I'm a great accountant and I have the credential to show it.
Even after our conversation today, I'll bet you still have questions, and that's great. You can probably tell that Jerica and Michael would truly enjoy helping you out, and you'll find their contact information in the show notes of this episode, which are available at bkd.com/simplytax. So simply reach out to them. After all, they don't bite. And if you're looking to learn more about a career in tax, or perhaps the various paths that it can lead you down, be sure to check out our Working in Tax series playlist on our Simply Tax YouTube channel. Now, I would also really enjoy hearing from you, and I would be happy to help with your questions and even share my personal experiences and career journey if it's helpful to you. Drop me an email at simplytax@bkd.com and connect with me on social media. You can find me out on Twitter, where I tweet about tax at Damien Martin CPA, on Instagram, where I post about my life at the intersection of tax and being a dad at TaxDad, and out on LinkedIn. I'm Damien Martin, and thank you for listening.
The information contained in this episode of Simply Tax is based on data available as of the date of its release. BKD is under no obligation to update this information if changes occur. Applying this information to your specific situation requires careful consideration of all facts and circumstances. Any information provided is not to be considered as tax, legal, or financial advice. Please consult your tax advisor before acting on any matters covered.